Okay, welcome to this Wellbeing Conversation, brought to you by the Wellbeing Directory in partnership with the Busy Women Club. And I'm your host, Helen Ranson. Each week we chat with incredible wellbeing professionals from our National Wellbeing Directory to explore their journeys, passions, and the work they do to help others thrive and keep well. And today I am joined by Hannah Barth from Purely Nourishing. Hello, Hannah, welcome. We've had a few technical hiccups getting set up, and if we're fuzzy, we're fuzzy, and if we're not, we're not, and just listen. So let's begin, Hannah. Tell me about how you started your work in wellbeing. What led you to do what you do today?
Oh, hi. Yeah, thanks for having me. And
Pleasure.
yeah, really nice to kind of be here and to share my story with everybody. So yeah, I kind of started in the kind of field of helping people, and I became a nurse about 18 years ago. I was a paediatric nurse, so I worked for a long time in specialities, but my field was working with children, and my role was supporting the mums, really. I think as a nurse, we are that bridge between the kind of medical, scary kind of medical establishment and the family. And this really difficult time that the families are, that kind of bridge where the kind of one person, the trusted person that can kind of, make that experience, as kind of least awful as it can be. And traditionally, this meant spending a lot of time with mums and a lot of time listening to them and being them in that capacity. And it was a real kind of honour. I've always considered that job as an honour, that I was kind of in that trusted position and that families and mums gave me that responsibility to allow me to support them through that. And then I became a mum myself years later, and that gave me a whole new respect for these incredible women, yes, who'd done this and made jokes and, hugged and carried on while their children were poorly in, some really awful situations. And the strength.
It's an exceptional caring position, isn't it? Being a mom, it's a position like none other. I think the responsibility and the overwhelm of that intense care is quite amazing. I'm sure to witness, but to also step into that role yourself is a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, I definitely didn't understand what it takes until I became a mum myself. And that kind of made me think back to all of the mums that I'd looked after for all those many years, and wow, you did all of that. And, you were struggling with the sick child and the worry, and but what it also gave me was this position that we often find ourselves in, where I wasn't able to do everything, and I wasn't able to manage this really quite senior role, plus be everything I wanted to be for my children at home. So I was lucky enough to be able to have a little kind of rejig on what I was doing. And I've always been so interested in nutrition and how the kind of profound effect of what we put into our bodies means, and how we feel, and our mood and our energy levels and just everything. And I spent the last bit of my career working with young people on an eating disorder ward, and I just saw how broken our food system is and how we are pushing these young people into this negative relationship with food, and how the kind of extreme effect of that, when I see it at that kind of clinical level, can just be so extreme. So I was really lucky. I was able to...
Sorry, you were seeing the impact of disease then, were you, from obviously working with eating disorders?
Well, yeah, just that impact, that self, where you see food as something other than what it is. Food should be there to nourish our bodies, and, it is there to be enjoyed as well. And, it's there to keep us healthy. And then when that relationship breaks down and food becomes something else, food becomes about control or about power or about kind of punishment, or that relationship between food becomes something so extreme that then it is not about nourishing your body anymore. It's about, this kind of complex, series of things that are going on. And when I saw it at that end, it's so difficult to support the young people at that point that really it made me see how these fundamental changes need to be put in much, much sooner. And it's the whole industry. It's big change that we're kind of talking about when we need to move forward in this. But even just in a kind of taking it back down to the family, there's just real work around building up that positive relationship from a really early age and seeing food as something that
we have an interview going out on Sunday in the club with a lady called Sigal Shire, who is echoing what you're saying, and she's a health coach, and she coaches on food, on nutrition, but on other aspects of well-being. And part of the conversation with her was so interesting. It was about the generational impacts that we take down through families, and I'm hearing the echoes of you saying this now in your conversation, that yes, it's about the food industry, and it's about our sort of lack of good choices and education to make those good choices, but also it's about home nurturing, isn't it? And that patterning that develops from mother to child or father to child in the home that starts this whole this relationship we all seem to have this difficult struggle with food in some way or another.
No, absolutely, that's it. There's so much going on there. It's so complex, but certainly so much of it is not repeat that cycle, and helping people overcome their own kind of issues around foods to not be able to pass them on to the children. And
so what do you see as the biggest challenge then for women and mothers?
I think this topic? It was certainly that challenge that I felt myself, like how you prioritize your own needs when there's so much else going on, when we're stepping into this kind of immense caring role and we're looking after so many different things, we're keeping so many kind of balls in the air. Where do we take the time for ourselves and not feel guilty about that and feel like we deserve that, and we're kind of worth that energy to spend on ourselves? Time and time again, how much energy women put into other people and into their work and into their house and keeping things nice, but we're all so reluctant to put that same energy into ourselves and take some time and to maybe spend some money or to prioritize your own needs. I think that's somehow been conditioned into us that that's not a part of our, that's not something that we need, or not something we deserve, or not something we're worth. And I think that's, we're really seeing the effects of that in, kind of in that maternal mental health. We're just not prioritizing our own needs. And this is just having a huge knock-on effect
into the family, the ripples on that pond. I mean, realistically, it's a totally selfless act to care for yourself, isn't it? Because the onward giving you can do with your family and your children, you're much more able to nurture effectively if you're self-caring. And yet there's that sort of burden of guilt, even to sit down and have 5 minutes to read a book or to meditate, or not to be planning the next thing for other people instead of giving ourselves the attention of planning for ourselves. Is sort of, you're right, it's ingrained in us, isn't it?
It really is. It's reinforced by so many levels of our society. We do live in a traditionally patriarchal society, and I don't think that does find time for that rest and that rejuvenation. It's all kind of go, and where can we move on to the next thing, and how can we achieve? It's it is that it's that cycle of being productive.
How, as a mother, then, and as a coach and somebody who's supporting people, do you help others find that consistency, that sustainable change in the way that their associations they have with food and health? How do you do that with your clients?
Yeah, it is a real challenge. And I think, like I said, we're all coming at it with our own story. And I find, time and time again, when we look at food, women are looking, this is really deep. These things go back to childhood, and the patterns that they have around food will be very kind of well reinforced. And so it does take time to be able to change and to be able to kind of how women feel around food and around nourishing their body. And I think a lot of that is being able to feel that change within yourself. So I have a lot of my work around reflection and thinking about how that felt for you. I kind of have looked a lot into how you kind of make sustainable behavior change, and you make habits that really stick. And I think part of that is feeling your own way of feeling how that made you feel better, and the change that you did, the kind of decision that you made had an impact on you. And sometimes it won't be an impact you'll like, but often if it is a positive impact and you can really feel that within yourself, it's much easier then to build that into a habit for yourself. So I kind of start really small with my patients, and we look at kind of changing one small thing, and then we look at reflecting on how that made you feel. So it's much easier to introduce one small habit or to make one small change, and then to reflect quite quickly but regularly on, how is that affecting your sleep? How is that affecting your energy levels? When you usually felt at 2:00, that kind of need for something sweet, has this change that we've made this week had an effect on that? So you're concentrating on changes, but really looking at kind of how they made a difference during your week, and how they've impacted kind of problems that you've picked up, things you wanted to change. Was that the thing that's made that better for you?
And do you get people to sort of record this information so they can reflect on it? What's the process of reflection that you use with people? Do they is it a written thing, or is it talking? Do you talk through it and reflect back that way?
Yeah, we kind of do all of it, really. I think it's as much reflection as you can do. And some people find that really difficult, that actually thinking about themselves and how did I feel? Actually, that self-reflection can be quite tricky, and so it's often something that comes up time and time again, and we have to really work on it. So we do it in many different ways. We do it in regular check-ins, where I will kind of be in touch with my patients and just how they're getting on, and we've done something that may have pushed them a little bit, and may have been a challenge. That's a time when I'll kind of reach out to them more and just encourage them to reflect to me and to feedback to me. But we also have, after every kind of focus, after every small change that they make, they'll receive a kind of feedback form, which comes straight to me, and that's then builds up across the program into a final kind of plan that we discuss at the end of the program. So they're feeding back all the time, and it's little bits that are all going to be built into a kind of larger plan that we're going to carry forward at the end. And then we meet up at regular points, so the beginning, middle and end, and that's part of it as well. We'll discuss everything they've done, and we'll look at how we're going to go forward. And some people need a bit more encouragement with that self-reflection, and some people really love it. So it's kind of very individualized.
And does your coaching go down to the nitty-gritty of nutrition? Are you supporting people with ideas for recipes, or their diet, meal planning, all that process that can be completely overwhelming, can't it, when you start out on a new regime or a new plan, or a new part of your life where you're trying to move from A to B? It's that overwhelm of detail. We're trying to fit ourselves into a new system. Is that something you provide as part of your coaching?
I'm always thinking about how is this going to work sustainably. So I don't want to kind of set them something that's too rigid or is not going to fit in with their kind of lifestyle, or they're just not going to be able to manage it long term. So though I do provide them with lovely lessons, and what I'm looking to do is to kind of build up their own understanding of their body and what works for them. So build up their own intuition about what they need and what their body's looking for, and how to kind of give their body what it needs. And so the plan is all around tuning yourself into what your body's telling us, because the messages are all there. Our bodies are, nothing is done by accident. We are created wonderfully, and when we listen, all the messages are there. And it's it's not always easy to listen. There's a lot of noise going on outside, but hopefully from the beginning of my plan to the end, it's really about tuning into what our body's telling us, and about education as well. We really look into the gut and how incredible that is as a kind of force of healing within our body. We look at, what is our body telling us, where it needs work, where it needs support. And so, that can be very individualized, but there's also kind of core things that a lot of people will be suffering from. And so, I kind of, provide those recipes and everything, but I find by the time clients get to the end of the program, they don't need that. They've kind of, they've got that more instinctive understanding of what they need and how to look after themselves and how to nurture themselves. It's really about seeing food as, it's not the be all and end all. It's there, to nourish your body and to, but there's lots going on. There's, getting outside and having fresh air. There's making sure you're sleeping well. There's so much going on. It's kind of,
I think the more we get into looking at personal health care, the more it becomes a whole list of things that we need to fit together, a whole jigsaw, isn't it? Not one thing alone will resolve our health issues. There's so many strands to it. And how do you think that, from your own point of view, the challenges you've faced in your personal journey and as a mom, how's that helped you help your clients?
I think I love the work I do, and I really think it came from a kind of struggle I had myself when I had my two babies quite close together. And before that, I had not had much kind of struggle with my hormones. Luckily my cycles were quite kind of settled, but all of that changed when I had my babies, and I was kind of just plonked into this roller coaster of hormones and looking at my body and not recognizing where I was and why who I was in this role of feeding these small people, but also having my own needs, and not understanding how I could manage all of that. And it felt like it came upon me quite quickly, and I found it a real struggle. And the first kind of couple of years of my children being young, I really lost myself. Maybe I certainly wouldn't say, though I loved the time with my children, I didn't really enjoy the time with myself. And it was kind of that journey back to being comfortable in my own skin again and comfortable in my own body and listening to what I needed again, rather than reacting to these kind of, being so exhausted and needing sugar and eating and then feeling bad and just being this kind of cycle of reacting, being able to kind of, come back to who I was and feel good and listen to what my body actually needed. It took a while, and it took some work, and
I think you're really lucky that you managed to do it, though, because a lot of people, I don't think, ever recover from that process. Mentally, emotionally, or physiologically. I think some people stay stuck in that place with themselves after children, and it's the hardest bit comes afterwards. It's really hard to align with yourself and to want to self-care after those experiences. There's that sort of disassociation that you're describing, with
Yeah.
yourself and your body, and coming to terms with this new you now, who has a
Yeah.
different role and a different identity as a mother. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I do think it's a struggle that goes on for people and that they never
Definitely.
resolve. So
Yeah.
the fact you managed to work your way through it. I mean, my own personal situation after my third child was that I became extremely ill and developed an autoimmune disorder, which really impacted my life and still does to this day, 19 years later. So, you know, those ongoing chronic conditions that can result as well can,
Yeah.
again, all be tied up in this cycle of motherhood and the
Yeah.
onward process, can't they? So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing you did to manage to get through it yourself. And
I
now you
think
can
I
help
often,
others. You can help
yeah.
others with your experience, can't you? Which is fabulous.
Yeah. And I often think we're trying, you know, like we say, nature doesn't do anything by mistake. I think we're like, when I meet women who are struggling with their cycles or with kind of, you know, postnatal depression, I think, again, it's where that society is so mismatched to where we are now, and where women are under, you know, a stress that they are not designed. You know, that period of time with young babies is not designed to also be thinking about all these other. This is this precious time where resting and be protected and be looked after and nurtured. And I think it's that kind of, you know, in a way we've lost that community and that support around our mothers. And so we're finding women are in this situation and then feeling guilty about that. I think there's a lot on thinking, well, you know, everyone does this. My mum, you know, all women go through this. Why can't I do it better? Why am I struggling and no one else is struggling? And I think, you know, there's so much of work needed around that, kind of just reframing that and saying, actually, we're trying to do this in a world that isn't set up to support mums. And, you know, I'm just trying to be that little voice to say that, you know, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. And we're all struggling and we all need support. And it's a long road. I'm not at the end of it. I'm still just on that road.
And you're right. Nature is quite ruthless. I mean, she takes away our ability to self-identify. Where from the minute we become pregnant, we become focused on another being, and yeah, and at the end of the process, she spits us back out, doesn't she? And says, "Right, get on with the rest of your life." And you sort of are completely disassociated from yourself and caring for yourself as a
That's why.
role.
Yeah, I really like to work with women around that stage where their children are around 4 to 5 and starting to go to school, and all the way through that school years, whenever there is the space. I think for these women, I think in those early years, it's very hard to be able to find that space to be able to look after yourself. And I think sometimes women can feel their children go to school then, and almost that protective blanket that they've had of being a mum of young children is kind of stripped away, and they're forced in a way to look then at themselves. And I think that's a really wonderful time to be able to work with a woman and be able to kind of reconnect them with what they are, and how to look after themselves at that period. But that goes on all the way through. Menopause is another amazing time when women are kind of confronted with this kind of who am I and where am I going? And it's another really wonderful time to work with women around that. And there's some really wonderful changes that can be made to make those years kind of really enjoyable time.
Do you know what? I think that would be a really interesting conversation we could have. Maybe if we do another one of these, which I'd love to do, to talk about, what happens post children, how do we regroup, and how. I mean, I wish I'd known you sooner, because I have a 12-year age gap between child number 2 and child number 3. So my regrouping process was massive. So that would be a really interesting conversation, because then obviously with menopause, new hormones come into play, new impacts on your gut health, new impacts
Yeah.
on your emotional self and your mental
Yeah.
well-being. So I think we
Yeah.
need another conversation around that one, definitely.
Yeah.
I think
I
lots of
think
people
women
would
are,
love to hear about that.
yeah. I think as women, we are used to rolling with the punches, but we're also kind of constantly asked to reinvent ourselves. And there's so many kind of, really critical points in a woman's life when she has to kind of, really reform who she is, and, doing that in a positive way, and doing that in a way that kind of, really is, a solid way. It makes a real difference to then how that journey is. And so that's one of those points that,
That's another
can
one.
really
We've
make a
got another
difference.
half hour definitely there. So just to wind down a little
Yeah.
bit, we've moved into a new season, and I think, it's something we're talking about in the club at the moment, the shift into September, that new school year, that newness of autumn. And 3 tips. Let's have 3 of your
Yeah.
top tips for moving into this part of the year, health
Yeah.
health and nutrition wise.
Yeah. I think one of my first ones, just looking at, the easiest, almost simplest thing to do, but it can just be missing so often, is just getting outside, and getting outside as early as you possibly can. I've worked with women who've kind of been in all sorts of states thinking, I need to go on antidepressants, I'm sure, and then we've just started working with getting out in the sunlight first thing in the morning. And it's like, wow, it's transformational. Or every cell in our body is constantly, running off this internal clock that we have. And when we reset that by the sunlight, it just makes a huge difference. It makes a difference to when we're hungry, and when we are able to sleep, and when we naturally wake. And if that first thing in the morning is to get outside and, reset our circadian rhythms by the sunlight, especially we are still getting a little bit of early sun. I know it's going to get late, but as much as we can is really, really important to get out. And if it's not first thing, then, lunchtime or early evening.
As soon as you can.
It can just, it's really powerful. We get a lot of energy from being outside. So yes, that would be my first tip.
And your second one, what's the second one?
My second, I think, is to look at your own body. So do almost a kind of research on what works for you. Try your breakfast to have just eggs for breakfast, eggs and avocado. Think about your fats and proteins, and then think after lunch. Oh yeah, I had that for breakfast. Am I feeling that kind of usual hunger dip? And then if you are, try something different. So really experiment with yourself, looking at your own body, changing. Breakfast is a really great one because you can really see the effects very quickly. So breakfast is like setting you up for the day. And so, pick a time, 2:00, how's my energy levels? And, what did you have for breakfast? And really experiment, mix it up, and, find the thing that gets you feeling the best at 2:00. And then I think my third one is, don't think about what you can take out. So I think we're so conditioned to think, all right, I'm going to cut out coffee, or I'm going to cut out chocolate. Just let's just add in wonderful things into our meals.
Oh, what a good idea.
If you want to have pasta, great, but put in spinach and peas and sweet corn and salmon, and really just think about adding in as many different colors and, different types of protein. Put in good fats where we can get them, nuts and seeds. So if you're having a bit of dark chocolate, that's great, or a bit of chocolate, that's great.
I did yesterday.
Yeah.
I snuck a little bit in. Oh, Hannah,
Lovely.
that's amazing. I don't want to cut you short, but I'm aware we're going to get pinged off this stream in a minute, and I just want to say thank you. And we've got to do it again. We've got to talk more. We've got to talk about less next time, so we can fit lots more questions in. So we'll do it again, and we'll do it again very soon. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Helen.
And thank you everybody for listening. I hope you've managed to hear us and see us, and we'll see you next time for another one of these. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.